conversation, and I shared that the reason I'm going to be talking about consecration is because I was actually convicted. On Sunday. Hold on, let me do one thing real quick. When you're using technology, you got to get everything up. Hey, PW Simon. So I was shared last night on my little invite to have y'all join me this morning that I was convicted, y'all. I was convicted. You back, Dana? Diana. I'm calling you Dana, but I think it's Diana. Hey, Tasha. What's up, Reverend? That I was convicted on Sunday when one of my radio show guests, talked about, I asked him the question if he wrote any plays that were not Bible-based, that were not Christian. And he said these words to me: I have decided to consecrate my work to the Lord. And that just kind of stuck with me and rang in my ear. Hey, Shauna D. And so because of that, I've been the last few days just studying on consecration and really just trying to understand what the Lord wanted me to better understand. And it convicted me. And here's why it convicted me. And I shared this last night, is because I had gotten away from my weekly Tuesday consecration, in that we have it set up on Tuesdays at our church that we have a prayer call at 6:30 a.m. We're supposed to fast from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then come to Bible study at 7 and be at Bible study at 7 p.m. And so I had gotten away from the fasting portion. Let me get a better angle with this light. I had gotten away from the fasting portion. And so I've been getting up doing 6:30 a.m. call. Periodically, I had been fasting on Tuesdays. I hadn't been consistent. And then, of course, Bible study. I don't have no problem doing Bible study. And so as I've been studying this word consecration, so here's where we're going today. When you study the word consecration, so let me kind of back up and then kind of go forward. To consecrate, or consecration, means to set something apart. As it relates to our Christianity or our belief in the Lord, it's to make something holy. It is to present something or present ourselves to the Lord for the purposes of setting it apart and declaring it holy unto the Lord. So in other words, whatever I consecrate to the Lord, it's His, right? It's set apart. It belongs to God. And so I think all of us, or most of us, and if you're on for the first time and this is all new to you, certainly let us know. So I'm trying to teach a little bit before I get into where we're going today. So that's consecration. In general, it is to set something apart. It is to make it holy. It is to dedicate it to the Lord, right? And so for me, Tuesdays have been my day of setting something aside to the Lord. My Tuesdays with prayer in the morning, fasting during the day, and Bible study at night. That was kind of like my day outside of church and everything else that I set aside to the Lord. And I picked that lesson up from when I was at Fame, because on Mondays, Pastor Murray would challenge us to let Mondays be our day of fasting every week. So that's that. And then when I had my guest, the playwright, on the show, and he talked about consecrating his work to the Lord. In other words, he had decided that his work as a playwright would be dedicated to God, and it would reflect God's message and God's word, right? So when he says this to me on Sunday, I'm convicted. Why? Because on Tuesdays, though I had been doing the prayer call and teaching Bible study, I had not been consistent with the fasting, right? So I'm studying the word consecration, and what I want to kind of share with you all this morning is one of the aspects, I'm going to say aspects, not so much definition, but one of the aspects of consecration is whole and complete surrender. Okay. One of the aspects of consecration is whole and complete surrender. And so when we talk about consecrating ourselves or consecrating something or consecration to the Lord, we're talking about giving something to the Lord wholly and completely, but surrendering it, right? Surrendering it in the understanding that I present this to God. I give it to God, right? I present it to Him. I give it to Him. I surrender it. I surrender it whole and complete, not in part, not in partiality, not in pieces, but the whole thing. So I don't cut a slice of my personal pie and give it to the Lord. I give the whole pie to him. I consecrate the whole pie, right? And so, but this surrender is not surrender as in I'm losing something, but surrender in that I am letting go of responsibility. Okay. So when I consecrate, and this is just one aspect of consecration, but part of when we talk about consecrating, whether it's ourselves, whether it's work, whether it's our talent, there are some artists who have decided that I'm only going to do gospel music or whatever. So it's whole and complete, not part, not impartiality. And the aspect of consecration that we're focusing on this morning is the surrender piece. So I surrender to the Lord, right? Whole and complete, but not as in loss. I'm not losing it. And this is where we get tripped up. I am letting go of responsibility, and I'm exchanging, right? From that being my responsibility to it being God's responsibility. I'm going somewhere with that. So again, consecration, an aspect of consecration is surrender. Surrender, and the understanding is when I surrender it, I give God full responsibility. I hope y'all see where I'm going with this. I give him full charge and full responsibility. I'm not losing nothing. I'm just taking the responsibility and the charge off of me and handing it over to the Lord. Not in part, not in partiality, but whole and complete. And so remember I said that on Tuesday, I had fallen off. The reason it convicted me is because I had fallen off of being consistent with the fasting portion of my Tuesday consecration. And so while I was doing the prayer call and consistent with that and consistent with Bible study, I had not been consistent with the fasting. And so here's why this is important, because the surrender, giving God full charge, full responsibility, right? In whole completion, wholeness or in completion, in full part, I give it to him. I consecrate it to him, right? I take responsibility off of me, put it on the Lord, right? And here's the thing, with the expectation that which I consecrate, he will accept. So when we think about Romans, it says, I urge you, my dear brothers, to surrender your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy, right, as unto the Lord. And then, right, he will receive it and accept it, right? There's a part that talks about the Lord accepting it, right? Y'all know that text. And so the consecration, the surrender, releasing responsibility, giving it to him whole and complete, then he accepts it. Then it's acceptable, not when I give partial, not when I give a piece, not when I give a little bit, but the acceptance when it says, and the Lord accepts it. So there's an accepting that happens when I consecrate. The Lord accepts, right? In his accepting it, right? So here's the deal. There is no consecration if the Lord don't accept it. Because part of the consecration is that it's pleasing and acceptable unto the Lord, right? It's pleasing and acceptable unto the Lord. Here's where we miss out. And I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of it. Because if I give in partiality, it's not whole and complete surrender. And here's where we get messed up. Here's where we miss out on the blessing of the consecration. Is many times we are giving God part of the deal, right? We're giving God partial. We're giving God a piece. We're giving God the part that's convenient. It's not whole and complete. And if it's not whole and complete, right, then it's not a full surrender. I'm not giving him full responsibility. And if I'm not giving him full responsibility, guess what? It's not acceptable. Ooh, y'all get that? It's not acceptable. And if it's not acceptable, guess what? That which I'm supposed to receive as a result of my consecration, I'm not getting. We're not getting because it's not acceptable. See, so many times we walk around giving God a part of our surrender, right? A part of our consecration, a piece, right? and we're thinking, oh, I'm good because I gave him some. I gave him a piece. I gave him a part. But he wants the whole shebang. The surrender is a whole and complete surrender, right? And in surrendering the whole and complete of the consecrated item or the consecrated part of our life, that then becomes acceptable, pleasing and acceptable to the Lord. So what then, so in order for it to be acceptable, it's got to be whole and complete. But if I'm only giving him a part, then it's not acceptable. And if it's not acceptable, guess what? That which I'm supposed to reap, the blessing that's supposed to come, the gift, the promise that's supposed to come as a result of my consecrating that unto the Lord, I'm not getting in fullness. Do you know how much we're missing out on when we hold back? And so here's the meditation. Here's the question, really. What part are you holding back from God? What part are you not giving him? And I gave my confession, y'all. I confessed my sin unto the Lord on Tuesday. Trust me, I fasted all day. Pleasing and acceptable in his sight. Absolutely. What part aren't you giving him? What part are you not giving him? I know the part you're giving him, right? I know the part you're giving him, right? We're clear. We're good to tell people, oh, I'm giving the Lord this. But the question is, what ain't you giving him? What part are you holding back? What part are you not giving in fullness unto the Lord? What part? Because a partial surrender is not a full surrender. Therefore, it's not pleasing and acceptable because God doesn't want a portion. Consecration means all. It doesn't mean portion. It doesn't mean piece. And we're trying to piecemeal that which are piecemeal our lives to God in consecration, and then we get mad when we wonder why we only getting a piecemeal blessing, a piecemeal promise. and here's the deal: most of the time we're not even aware that we're only giving God a part. And so let's all chalk it up to I didn't know no better. Let's chalk it all up to I didn't know no better. I didn't know no better, right? And so from today forward, whatever we decide to consecrate and give to the Lord, the surrender must be whole and complete, right? And then and only then, and when I give him full responsibility, full charge, right? Take my hands off of it, surrender it all, right? Then it becomes pleasing and acceptable. And when I'm in that place, then I can expect to receive or expect to experience the fullness of the consecration. Because here's the deal. Whatever the Lord wants consecrated, whatever I surrender to him, you and I have the expectation of promises and blessings and reward coming as a result of that. That's part of the deal. That's part of the promise. That's part of the covenant relationship, that when I consecrate and I give responsibility to the Lord for a portion for my life or whatever, or a thing or a ceremony, whatever. For me, it was Tuesdays. For the playwright, it's his plays. Whatever it is for you, it's for you, right? When I give that and consecrate it to the Lord, then there's an expectation of whatever the blessing or reward is that comes with that. Then I can expect to receive it, but I can't if he's not pleased, if it's not acceptable. I can't expect to receive what I'm supposed to receive from that. And so a lot of us are partially giving to God that which he has called to be consecrated unto him. Partial. And when it's partial, when it's not whole and complete, it can't be pleasing and acceptable. And if it's not pleasing and acceptable, I cannot expect to reap the fullness of the benefit of the consecration. So think in terms of an insurance policy. If you don't pay your premium in full, you cannot expect to pull down the fullness of your policy until you pay your premium in full. Y'all get that? Y'all understand that? And so again, and I was convicted about this. So do know Tuesday I got it together. I struggled too because I had not been consistent. So it was a struggle. And what I just want to encourage someone is whatever the Lord is requiring of you to consecrate, right? And it may not be, whatever. Don't give it to him in partial and in piece. Don't piecemeal the consecration. Whatever the Lord is asking for, whatever the Lord is requiring of you, right? Make the decision today that I'm going to give it to the